$100,000. Right now, you've got it sitting somewhere. A savings account paying you 3.7%. That's $3,700 a year, while your landlord collects $20,000. The question isn't whether you should deploy it into real estate. The question is, where? In the next 20 minutes, you're getting 5 real paths for that money. Starting with one that cash flows from day one. But method number 4 has the wildest math on the entire list. We'll get there. Here's what nobody told you about that savings account. 3.7% sounds decent until you realize inflation is running above 5% in real terms right now. Which means every year your $100,000 sits still. You're actually losing ground. You're not earning. You're slowly falling behind. And that feeling you've got right now, that low-grade anxiety that your money isn't working hard enough, that's not paranoia. That's math. Quick note before we go further. Everything here is educational, not legal or financial advice. Laws vary by state, and real estate rules are local. Always work with a local professional. Always consult a real estate attorney in your state before you make any moves. That said, let's get into it. My name's Harry, and I want to tell you something personal before we get to the 5 methods. About 8 months ago, I inherited a property from my uncle. He bought rental houses in the 80s, back when you could pick up a duplex in a solid neighborhood for $30,000 cash. He complained about management his entire life. Tenants calling at midnight, maintenance surprises, the occasional nightmare renter. But he never stopped buying. And when he passed, he left me one of those properties. I sold it. And after closing costs and taxes, I had $103,700 sitting in my account. I didn't want to blow it. This was his legacy, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I spent 3 months doing nothing but research, spreadsheets, Reddit threads, county records, phone calls to property managers in 4 different cities. And what came out the other side is what I'm calling the 100K blueprint, a framework for taking exactly this amount of money and deploying it across 5 very different real estate paths, from the easiest to the most advanced, from the most passive to the most active. And today, you're getting the whole thing. Let's start. Method 1. Turnkey rentals. Difficulty, 1 out of 10. This is the gentlest entry point in real estate investing that actually produces real cash flow. Here's what a turnkey rental is. You buy a property that's already been renovated, already has a tenant in place, and already has a property manager handling day-to-day operations. You wire the money. The rent check starts coming. That's the concept. Where do you find these? Companies like Roofstock, Rent to Retirement, Norada Real Estate, Morris Invest, Memphis Invest, and Martel Turnkey all operate in this space. These aren't shady operations. They're established businesses that source, rehab, and package rental properties, then sell them to investors like you. The numbers. With $100,000, you're looking at properties in the $150,000 to $300,000 range across the Midwest and South. Put down 20 to 25%. That's $30,000 to $75,000 per property, which means with $100,000, you could potentially split across 2 properties. One in Memphis, one in Indianapolis, one in Kansas City. Markets where a well-priced duplex at $250,000 could generate $600 to $800 per month in net cash flow after the mortgage, management fees, and basic reserves. Roofstock even offers a 30-day money-back guarantee on some listings. That's how confident they are in the underwriting. Now, here's what Harry ran into. He got excited, looked at 12 listings on one of these platforms, and 3 of them looked incredible on paper. Advertised cash-on-cash returns of 9%. Then he pulled up the actual comparable sales in those zip codes, and suddenly those numbers weren't matching. The properties were priced at retail, sometimes 10 to 20% above what the surrounding market supported. That's the #1 red flag in turnkey investing. The markup. These companies renovate and they deserve to profit. But your job is to verify independently. Pull your own comps. Check Zillow sold listings, Redfin, and local county records. If the numbers only work at their asking price and not at a 5 to 10% discount, walk away. Reddit investors sum it up like this. 90% of listings don't cash flow well once you account for hidden HOA fees and actual vacancy rates. So find the 10%. They exist. And when you find one that pencils out, it's genuinely one of the most passive forms of real estate investing available to a first-timer. Method 2. Duplex and triplex investing. Difficulty, 2 out of 10. This is the one the Reddit real estate community recommends more than almost anything else. Here's what it is. You use your $100,000 as a 20 to 25% down payment on a 2-unit, 3-unit, or 4-unit property. You either rent all the units as a pure investment, or you house hack it. You live in one unit, you rent the others. The house hack math is where it gets genuinely exciting. Picture this. You buy a $500,000 fourplex. You put $100,000 down. You move into one unit. You rent the other 3 at $1,800 per month each. That's $5,400 per month coming in. Your mortgage on a primary residence at today's rates, somewhere around 6.3 to 6.4% on a 30-year fixed, comes out to roughly $2,660 per month. Your tenants are covering your entire mortgage, and you're pocketing close to $2,740 per month before taxes, insurance, and vacancy. Think about that for a second. Your housing costs just hit zero, and you're cash flowing positive. Best markets for this strategy according to current cap rate data. Reading, Pennsylvania at 5.7%. South Bend, Indiana at 5.4%. Evansville, Indiana at 5.3%. And for higher yield plays, Kingsville, Texas at 8.2% and Enterprise, Alabama at 7.9%. Harry's scenario. He found a triplex in his Sunbelt metro, 3-unit, listed at $390,000. With $100,000 down, his mortgage would sit around $2,100 per month. 2 of the 3 units were already rented. Combined rent, $2,800 per month, positive from month 1. He hasn't pulled the trigger yet, but he keeps coming back to this one. The thing the community keeps saying, don't time the rates. Buy when the deal pencils out. A deal that works at 7% rates still works when rates drop to 5. It just works even better. Now, I want to stop right here for a second because I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't say this out loud. Not every turnkey deal is actually turnkey, and not every duplex is the smooth machine the listing makes it look like. Harry talked to a guy named Marcus, who bought a duplex in the Midwest through a turnkey provider. Month 3, the furnace went. Month 7, a roof inspection revealed 5 years of deferred maintenance nobody disclosed. By month 8, his cash-flowing property had cost him $11,000 more than he collected in rent. And because it was a 2-unit building. When one tenant left unexpectedly, he went from 2 income streams to 1 overnight. That's a 50% revenue loss from a single vacancy. Here's what you do to protect yourself. Budget 10% vacancy on every projection, even if the seller says the unit hasn't been vacant in 4 years. Verify the full repair history, not just what they tell you, but what's documented. Pull permits, ask for utility bills, and always run your own comps independently before you sign anything, now that you know what to watch for. Method 3 is the one nobody talks about. Method 3, midterm rentals. Difficulty, 2 out of 10. Here's what it is. Instead of renting to a long-term tenant on a 12-month lease, or operating a short-term Airbnb with constant turnover and cleaning fees, midterm rentals target stays of 30 to 90 days. Think traveling nurses, corporate relocation housing, remote workers who need furnished housing for a month or 2 at a time. Where does this work? Anywhere near a hospital, a university, a corporate campus, or a government installation. And increasingly, anywhere with reliable internet and a furnished, well-photographed listing. The key fact, you're collecting higher per-night rates than a long-term lease, but with dramatically lower turnover than a traditional short-term rental. You're not doing 5 cleanings a week, you're doing 2 or 3 per month. The wear on the property is lower. The administrative load is lower. Platforms like Furnished Finder and Airbnb's monthly stay filter both support this model. Harry's reaction when he dug into this one. Less headache than Airbnb, better returns than a regular lease. The sweet spot nobody talks about. He actually said that. And he wasn't wrong. Experienced real estate investors in the passive income community are increasingly pointing to midterm rentals as the under-the-radar model of the current cycle. Because it solves the two biggest complaints about both short-term and long-term rentals simultaneously. With $100,000 as a down payment on a two-bedroom furnished unit in the right market, you're potentially looking at monthly gross income of $2,500 to $3,500 versus a long-term lease that might generate $1,600 to $1,800. The differential matters, especially when you're deploying an inheritance and you want to honor it properly. Method 4. Tax deed auctions. Difficulty, 3 out of 10. And yes, this is the one I warned you about, the wildest math on the entire list. Here's what it is. When a property owner fails to pay their property taxes, the county eventually takes the property, and then the county sells it, at auction, to the public. The opening bid is often nothing more than the back taxes owed, which in distressed rural counties can be as low as $2,000 to $30,000. Read that again. You could potentially buy a property outright for $2,000 to $30,000. This is the moment I want you to really sit with what the 100K blueprint makes possible at this level. Instead of deploying your $100,000 as a down payment on one property, you could theoretically purchase 3, 4, or 5 properties outright at a tax deed auction in the right county. Free and clear. No mortgage. All cash flow from day one. That's not a typo. That's how the math works. Now, where this gets serious. Not all states operate the same way. There are 2 flavors: tax deed states and tax lien states. In a tax deed state, you're buying the actual property. In a tax lien state, you're buying the right to collect the debt plus interest while the owner has a redemption period to pay you back. Here's the comparison table in plain language. Florida offers both structures, with an interest rate of 18% and a 2-year redemption window. Illinois, 18%, 2 to 3 years. Indiana, 10%, 1 year. Michigan is a pure tax deed state with no redemption period once the transfer completes. Arkansas is also tax deed, with only a 30-day redemption window. Texas offers redemption deeds with a 6-month to 2-year window depending on the property type. Experienced investors focus on Michigan, Arkansas, and Georgia for the cleanest title transfers. Now, the red flags, and they are real. First, title. A raw tax deed almost always comes with a clouded title, meaning there may be prior liens, unresolved claims, or competing interests attached to the property. To clear that title so you can sell or finance the property later, you need what's called a quiet title lawsuit. That costs roughly $1,500 to $5,000 and takes 3 to 6 months. Budget for it. Second, title insurance. Nearly impossible to obtain on a raw tax deed acquisition until the quiet title process is complete, which means you are holding an asset with no insurance protection for several months. Third, condition. You are often buying a property you have never been inside. The property could be a value-add opportunity, or it could be uninhabitable. And fourth, and this one stings, ATTOM data and county-level auction records show that competitive urban auctions have started approaching 80 to 90% of market value. The only payback taxes scenario is increasingly rural. In cities, other investors have done the math too. Here's a story worth knowing. A Canadian investor lost $100,000 in a 2025 tax sale acquisition. Bought what looked like a deal. Outstanding liens survived the deed transfer in that jurisdiction. The lien holders came calling. The property was worth less than the total claims against it. Gone. The lesson is not that tax deed investing is dangerous. The lesson is that tax deed investing rewards the investor who does the research and punishes the one who doesn't. Get to know Michigan, Arkansas, and Georgia specifically. Attend a few auctions before you bid. Pull the title, history. Talk to a local real estate attorney in your state who specializes in tax deed acquisitions. The upside here is enormous, but the homework has to be done. Method 5. Private lending. Difficulty, 3 out of 10. Here's what it is. You become the bank. Instead of buying a property yourself, You loan your $100,000 to another investor who's buying and rehabbing a deal. They pay you interest. 8 to 12% annually is typical, plus 1 to 3 points at closing. The loan is secured by the property itself. If they default, you have a claim on the real estate. Where does this work? Everywhere. Every market has active fix and flip investors who need bridge financing faster than a traditional bank can provide it. They need private money. That could be your money. The key fact: you don't need to find a deal. You don't need to manage a property. You don't need a property manager, a plumber, or a lease agreement. You fund someone else's deal and collect interest every single month. Harry's reaction when he modeled this out: you don't even need to find a deal. You fund someone else's deal and collect interest every single month. That's it. That's the whole job description, with $100,000 at 10% annual interest plus 2 points at closing. You're looking at potentially $10,000 per year in interest payments, plus $2,000 upfront at closing. That's $12,000 in year one on a 12-month loan, without owning a single piece of property or fielding a single maintenance call. The caution: vet your borrowers carefully. Ask for their track record. Get a title search on every property before you fund. Use a real estate attorney to draft the note and deed of trust. And never lend more than 65 to 70% of the after-repair value of the property. That's your cushion if something goes wrong. Okay, let's talk about what the next 5 years actually look like if you deploy this money right. This is the part of the 100K blueprint that most people never stop to calculate. Let's say you split your $100,000 across 2 strategies: $60,000 down on a duplex, $40,000 into a turnkey rental. Year 1. Your duplex generates $500 per month net cash flow after mortgage and expenses. Your turnkey generates $400 per month. That's $10,800 in annual cash flow. Year 1. But here's what's also happening underneath the surface. Both properties are appreciating. Historically, residential real estate in the markets we've discussed has appreciated 3 to 4% annually over long holding periods according to Freddie Mac's House Price Index data, on a combined portfolio value of roughly $700,000. That's $21,000 to $28,000 in paper equity gain per year. Your tenants are also paying down your mortgages. Every payment, a portion goes to principal. Year 5, you've potentially built $30,000 to $40,000 in additional equity from principal paydown alone. And then there's the tax treatment. Depreciation on rental properties reduces your taxable income. On a $250,000 property, you're potentially deducting $7,000 to $9,000 per year through depreciation on your federal return. That's real money you keep that the IRS would otherwise take. Add it up across 5 years. Cash flow, $50,000 plus. Appreciation on a $700,000 portfolio at 3% annually. $100,000 plus. Principal paydown, $30,000 to $40,000. Tax savings through depreciation, $30,000 to $40,000. Starting position, $100,000. 5-year position, potentially $350,000 to $400,000 in combined return and equity. That is what compounding in real estate looks like. And you didn't need to be a developer. You didn't need connections. You needed a framework. You needed the 100K blueprint. So here are your exact next steps for each path. Turnkey rentals. Go to Roofstock today. Filter by markets in the Midwest and South. Pull up 5 listings that show advertised cash-on-cash returns above 8%. Then go to Redfin and pull comparable sold properties in the same zip codes within the last 90 days. If the asking price aligns with market value, you found a candidate. If it doesn't, move on. Duplex and triplex. Get on Zillow. Search 2 to 4 unit properties in the 5 best cap rate markets we covered. Contact 3 local property managers before you make an offer and ask them what units rent for in that specific zip code. Their answer matters more than the listing. Midterm rentals. Go to Furnished Finder right now and search for your target city. Filter for 30-plus day stays. See what furnished units are renting for. Then compare that to long-term lease comps in the same area. If the gap is meaningful, the midterm model works there. Tax deed auctions. Go to your state's county tax assessor websites. Search for upcoming auction dates. Most counties post lists of properties going to auction 30 to 60 days in advance. Pick one county in Michigan or Arkansas to start. Attend an auction as an observer before you bid. Watch how it works. Take notes. Talk to the other investors there. They know things that aren't in any guide. Private lending. Join a local real estate investor association. Virtually every mid-sized city has one. Go to 2 or 3 meetings. Tell people you have capital available for the right deal. Experienced flippers will find you. Ask them for their last 3 deals. Look at the before and after. If their track record holds up, you have a potential first loan. Here's what I want to leave you with. My uncle bought rental houses in the 80s. He complained about management his whole life. He complained about tenants. He complained about furnaces going out in January and calls at 2 in the morning. But he never stopped buying. And at the end of his life, those properties had done something that a savings account never could. They had built something real, something that outlasted him. $100,000 is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a portfolio, and you have 5 real paths in front of you right now. Different difficulty levels, different time commitments, different risk profiles, but all of them, if done correctly, point in the same direction. The money works. You just have to put it somewhere worth working. Method 4, tax deed auctions, is so powerful I'm doing a full breakdown next, showing you exactly how to find the auction, research the title, and bid without getting burned. If you don't want to miss that one, subscribe. And if this video helped you think through where your $100,000 actually belongs, hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people find this content who need to hear it. The 100K blueprint. Put it to work.